Yes, hello again. My message again is to YouTubers. My name is Daniel Fitzgerald. I'm posting another very short video, something I forgot to mention in the last one. But first, I'd like to indicate that, again, the Canadian government of Canada and their territorial governments are unlawfully censoring my videos by placing them under private so that I don't get a wider audience throughout the globe. This is prejudicial and, of course, illegal, and I'd like to state again that Canada's governmental and security actions have been nothing but trying to cover up this case from international and Canada-wide public viewing, which, again, I'd like to stress to the public that this is an admission of guilt, and I direct this and my videos, the newest ones in the last week, to the Russian Federation Security Council member state, that we gave them all our evidence 4 years ago, and at that time, the Russian ambassador appointed to Canada was Ambassador Darshiev. We still don't know what the Russian Federation did with the evidence we gave them. I have asked them. I don't get an answer, but it would appear that the Foreign Ministry in Moscow, from my perception, speaking with them on the phone on a couple of occasions so far, that they do know something. So, but the reason for this little extra, as I forgot to mention, in 2006, my wife and I were forced unlawfully to appear in the CAS family court drama in Toronto over our daughter, Lara Danielle Fitzgerald. The justice in the matter was Justice James P. Nevins. This judge is a raving, illegal, criminal lunatic, okay? And we found out a couple of years later doing research after we abandoned this court completely, compelling us to give up our two little children. We found that there was several complaints against Justice Nevins by other parents of illegal misconduct in his courtroom. As I recall, one of the allegations on Canada Court Watch at that time was an allegation. There were several allegations against this judge. One allegation in particular, he was the justice overseeing a family court issue regarding some other children. The parents were in his courtroom. He then dismissed the stenographers from the courtroom, and he started yelling and screaming at the parents unlawfully. Okay? And that's the reason why he dismissed the stenographers. This was on Canada Court Watch, and this judge has several other complaints, and there's been complaints on Canada Court Watch as well at that period of time regarding other corrupted family court judges. Okay? But in our case, let me indicate my wife and I at that time, this judge made some remarks against us in his courtroom, which were unlawful. Number one, he refused to allow my wife and I to say anything. He started screaming and yelling at us, pointing at the Children's Aid Society worker, stating to both my wife and I, screaming at us at the top of his lungs and pointing over at their lawyer, telling us he only wants to hear from them. He said, I only want to hear from that side, not from you. And the point here is that my wife and I had no lawyer at the time, and on a couple of occasions, the hearings over our daughter, Lara Danielle Fitzgerald, were separate. Maybe there might be one hearing a week or something like that. So after a couple of these horrible hearings by this judge who was trying to scare us, he really was working hard to scare the living daylights out of us like we had committed some great crime against our daughter. It was all a setup. First of all, during the proceedings in one hearing, the lawyers for CAS, the lawyer for CAS finally shut her mouth, and I just simply said to the judge, Your Honor, I'm Daniel Fitzgerald, the father. May I please address the court? There was a point there where the other side finally stopped talking. And the judge just looked at me in great anger and hatred and said, shut, Mr. Fitzgerald, keep your mouth shut. I only want to hear from them. And that's what he said to me. Okay? As if we were interrupting some testimony by the other side. We did not. I did not state the words "I object" to what the other side was saying. I let them ramble on until there was a break, and then I just simply asked the judge, "May I please say something?" And that's when he yelled at me and said, "Mr. Fitzgerald, I only want to hear from them. Sit there and shut your mouth," were his exact words. Then at a following hearing, my wife Jennifer Fitzgerald, the mother, again, she didn't interrupt the other lawyer for the CAS. And there was a break, and my wife said to the judge, "Your Honor, I'm Jennifer Fitzgerald, the mother. May I please say something to the court?" The judge looked at my wife, screamed at her at the top of his lungs, and told her to shut her mouth or he would find her in contempt. After that hearing, all the way home on the subway, my wife was crying. Okay? He scared the living crap out of her. So, these are things that I wanted to tell you. And then there's more. I didn't include this in the last one, and I'm going to tell the Russians this. I haven't told them yet. I'll tell them tomorrow, Canada. Judge Nevin made these statements to my wife and I. At one point, he said, Judge Nevin's comments were, 1, some parents come to his courtroom and never return. 2, he said, he stated, an independent psychiatric evaluation will be hard to come by. And then the judge stated, Nevin stated, the matter would be said over, and repeatedly said over. So I wanted to get this little tidbit of information into my private videos. And I will be calling the Russians tomorrow, as I usually do, only once a week. I'm still cut off from calling the Russian Federation mission in New York by the American government and the Canadian government with recordings stating either their number is not available right now, or their number's busy, or in the case of some American exchange recording stating to me that phone number has not been allocated yet. Okay, so we have Canada's government and the U.S. government blocking us from an international community member state of the UN in New York, the Russian Federation, who I've been calling now for 8-9 years. Okay? So I'm going to post this right now. It's very short, and I'd like all parents to know that, in the province of Ontario, your children are being kidnapped from some of you. Some of you are losing your children legitimately. Others of you are losing your children illegitimately by corrupted judges who the government uses, organized crime used to steal your children because they're trying to simply destroy your family. Ever since 2006, 7, when these events occurred with our daughter, it turns out that our allegations in our affidavit to CAS in the court that my wife and I were being followed by an organized crime ring, they tried to stipulate in their affidavit that was fiction and that we were delusional. Well, I got a bit of a problem with that. Because after the children matter ended, essentially, in that court, I refused for my wife and I to go to such a court where the judge was being completely one-sided. He had no evidence or anything to carry on with that kind of frightening, insulting, threatening, literally threatening attitude. So, I want the public to know, hopefully we will find a way to have our videos unprivatized by the government so that mass numbers of the public in the country, outside of the country, can hear what happened. We've been fighting for our children since 2006. I do not attend courts that are deeply corrupted, okay, by organized crime and Nazis and, you name it, okay? We just, that is not within the context of Canada's legal system. The government of Canada and their Supreme Court justices seem to try and maintain their positions that, that they trust all their courts and judges. Well, I got bad news for them. Not in this case. And it's not in the case of many other people neither, unfortunately. And the government just keeps covering it up. Complaints by Canadians against the governments of Canada, the government of Canada and their provincial underlings are constantly ignored. When the governments are accused, or their ministries are accused, their courts are accused, their police are accused, they do everything they can, everything, to cover it up. And they're maintaining this position with us. And I personally think that there'll be a breakthrough in our case. Okay, the government of Canada seeks out criminal allegations from the Russian Federation regarding our case. Their courts face criminal allegations. The estate court in Welland faces allegations of illegal corruption by not even sending me the final decision as to who would be executor of my mother's estate. And then when it's reported to them that my brother Robert Scott Fitzgerald tells me he's not giving me one more cent until I provide my social insurance number, and I decline that request by him, and I report it to this court that apparently gave him the executorship. I explained to them my brother has ripped me off for $35 to $50,000. I told them this, no response. Okay, so this is all really politically motivated. If I'd have known that that he would only give me $15,000 out of $50,000, which is what I've estimated, if I'd have known that in the beginning, I would have taken the $15,000 and I would have hired a lawyer and retained one. I would have given one a $5,000 retainer in case my brother decided to mess up. Okay, he's not responding. It's been like 3 months or so, or 4 months. He refuses to answer my emails. He refuses to answer regarding handing me over the rest of the thousands of dollars. So, I've requested it from him. Then he turns around and says, well, you told me, he said to me, well, you told me you didn't want it, that, I could keep it. And yes, I did make that offer initially just to see what he would say. He turns around and says, no, I don't want your money. It's yours. You're going to get it. He told me that he'd give me the $15,000. The rest would be coming in a few months. Okay, well, I haven't seen a cent of it. And I've complained to this court about this. I've complained to Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, about it. I have complained to Trudeau's office here about it. I've complained to Poilievre's office about it. No response from any of these bozos. Okay, so, they're not responding to unlawful actions against me in the Welland court. They're not responding to unlawful actions back in 2006-07 in the family courts regarding a dirty, corrupted, filthy judge who should never have been on the bench to begin with. And you got to remember, folks, at that time in 2006-07, my wife and I are from British Columbia. Now, interestingly, after they took our daughter on the 19th of December 2006 illegally from a family shelter, they came and snatched her while we weren't there. Okay, we went to look for an apartment. We left her in the hands of the staff there because we didn't want her to get sick on the long journey and on a bus and a subway, 2 hours to look at an apartment. And they said they would. We come back, she's gone. No reasons, no nothing. The CIS stated to my wife and I in the conference room, their leader, Pat Sisson, states to my wife and we said, why did you take our daughter? Why did you do that? Why? She said, we thought you were leaving. And then they created this fictional affidavit with a statement in it. They checkmarked a box that said, the person having charge or in charge of the children might harm that children due to negligence or something like that. I have to look it up. We committed no crime. We took care of our daughter. We loved her, protected her. We left BC to protect her and us because someone in a hospital pulled out her catheter trying to kill her. And the people responsible for that act went around under the table telling people that I pulled her catheter out. This was being spread all over Vancouver. The whole city of Vancouver thought I did it. But just by rumor. On the streets, they thought that I tried to kill my daughter by pulling her catheter out. We didn't find out about this until December 25th, 2006. After they took our daughter on the 19th, we were crying in our room. My wife was pregnant with my son, Sebastian. We didn't tell them this. And we were crying for days and days in our room. And then what had happened was when we took our daughter to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto to have her liver checked, because the doctor in BC told us we had to do that, Dr. Jacobson, who gave us permission to travel with her. We took her, and it turned out her liver was fine, that it was healing, according to the doctor's physical findings of checking her liver. And he also took some blood work. And he wanted us to take her to a hospital wherever we went in 2 to 3 weeks, and he would fax the results of the blood work to confirm his physical findings. His name was Dr. Jacobson, okay? And we did that. We took her to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, and the doctors sent a fax to BC's Grace Hospital for her records, and her blood work turned out to be positive that she was okay. They released her. The two CAS officials who came with us to the hospital, we were leaving through the front entranceway to Sick Kids. Mr. Dillon was his name. He had an African female co-worker. They said to my wife and I, thank you. It was nice knowing you guys. We wish you and your kids the best of luck. And by that statement, the matter was over. Okay? But it was not over. All right. So then we had our daughter's medical history, which the nurse gave to us, that was faxed to the emergency room from BC as they were examining her. And they gave us a package with her medical history. The nurse told us, look, as soon as your wife get a pediatrician, give the pediatrician this package. It's your daughter's medical history from BC Grace when she was born. Sure, okay. So we took it back to her room with us with our daughter at the shelter, and they took her on the 19th. We were crying for pretty well 4 or 5 days. And on the 25th of December, on Christmas Day, I said to my wife, when we were emotionally sort of starting to recover a little, I said, look, let's open up her medical information from BC. They gave us at the hospital. So we did. I found this document in there, this medical document on the history where she had some kind of catheter in her chest. She was born at 4 pounds, which means she was premature, which means probably her lungs needed assistance. So they installed a catheter, I guess, we're assuming to drain her lungs until they could function on their own. As the document stated, the catheter was pulled out by 2 centimeters. The doctor put on the document 4 question marks. Okay, and interestingly, our daughter's file number was 717. And 13 in the gang world, folks, means bad luck and death. Okay, and ever since they took our children, they've tried to kill my wife and I. They tried to kill me. They tried to run my wife over with a police car. They wrecked our boats. They tried to arrest us constantly, tried to frame me constantly. No, we have a case against Canada. The federal government has nothing to say. And their provincial, and this is the Liberals and Conservative parties of Canada doing this. They did it all along. First, it was the Liberals. It was Gordon Campbell and his Minister of Health in BC telling the hospital to keep what happened to our daughter a secret from the parents, not to tell the parents about the catheter pulling. They kept it all under wraps until we were long gone from BC, and approximately 6 months after she was born, we would find out, okay, about the catheter. Then the Campbell government, a Liberal bastard, who was appointed by Stevie Wonder as ambassador to the UK in 2010, a nice little reward for Gordon Campbell, eh? Isn't he something? So then the Liberal Party of Canada decided to follow us wherever we traveled. We went to Ontario. It was the Dalton McGuinty Liberal government who did all this. Then after that, my wife and I go to Quebec in 2011, and it's the Couillard government, Liberal, again, carrying on with the cover-up and trying to arrest my wife and I to shut us up constantly. This went on and on and on. We come back to Ontario here, and they start doing it again. This is, and incidentally, I'd like to point out that, before I go, that Premier Doug Ford needs to understand, he's the Premier of Ontario, that there is territorial laws, okay, and there's federal laws, okay, and that Mr. Ford and his Ottawa Police Service have no right whatsoever to intimidate me or my wife or try to threaten us covertly and subtly, like we're going to be arrested for contacting embassies here. They have no lawful right to do that. It's not part of their jurisdiction. The Ottawa Police Service has no jurisdiction whatsoever over Canadians' communications to member states of the international community and the United Nations. That's the bottom line. And I had to tell this to Mr. Ford this morning in a recorded and written message to him through, whoever works for him who answers the phone at his office. Okay? So I hope he gets my message. We have a right under international law of appeal. We have a right to appeal outside of Canada. According to international law, and I want to repeat this for stupid police here and the filthy governments, that we have a right of appeal to the International Criminal Court when we cannot get a remedy out of the territorial governments of Canada who committed these things, and when we report it all to the federal government of Canada according to the International Criminal Court rules of conduct, when we cannot seek out and get a remedy from the federal government, who's the head of the territorial governments, then we have a right of appeal to the International Criminal Court. Okay, and this is specifically been stated by the Dutch government in the UN in New York City. They told us this. Canada blocked our evidence from the ICC. Canada used corrupted people that are working within the courthouse at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. We believe Trudeau went to the Prime Minister of the Netherlands as well. We believe that the Trudeau government reached out to a Mr. Kirkpatrick, who is a provincial prosecutor from Toronto, who was appointed by the ICC as the second highest prosecutor under Miss Basuda 4 years ago. And that this Kirkpatrick, a Canadian prosecutor from Toronto, was informed by Canada's government through the embassy to act to cover up our case from going anywhere internally. Mind you, Mark P. Dillon never said any of that. I'd like to state again to Canada, listen, Canada, our case is still open at the ICC, Mr. Prime Minister. Do you understand? Mr. Mark P. Dillon informed us that they didn't get any of our evidence, and that but the case remains open until we provide evidence. Okay, but Canada's blocking us from providing them evidence, and they continue to do this. The censoring of my videos on YouTube by Canada unlawfully, trying to stipulate the rules and regulations outside of the owners of YouTube is unlawful, and trying to enforce those things covertly by accessing my YouTube account and the government accessing YouTube here, their security, making my videos all private so no one can see them. 45 views in 3 years on one video. The one below that video was the media attention regarding Mr. Hunka, a Nazi SS Waffen, who was got a standing ovation in our House of Commons by 400 MPs who just could not figure out that when he fought the Russians, he was actually working for the Germans as an SS, who killed Jews, Poles, Ukrainians, Russians, and you name it. And they gave him a standing ovation. And that video is right underneath mine, okay? It got 7 million views. Mine got 45 in 3 years. There you go. Enough said. I'll post this, and God bless all of you. And we'll see Canada. We'll see Trudeau. We'll see Ontario. We'll see.